Did you know that during the early days of Dead by Daylight, perks were much more colorful, I guess you could say, than they are today? During the entirety of 2016, all perks came in a variety of rarities that were usually determined not only by their tier, but also by their special function if they had one in the first place. For example, tier 1 perks ranged from common meaning brown to rare meaning green, while tier 3 perks were sometimes green and other times iridescent for no apparent reason really. For instance, empathy doesn't have a unique effect or anything like that, as it is just a simple aura reading perk, therefore it was common at tier 1. However, Decisive Strike allows you to do something that pretty much no other perk in the game can do, and this is why at tier 3 the perk was iridescent, or ultra rare, or pink, whatever you wanna call it. Now, there was a problem with this system. See, because of the way how the original Blood Web functioned, it was very difficult to obtain tier 1 perks as a whole, even to the point where the Blood Web would only spawn them when there were literally no other perks left for it to generate. Now, the developers did solve this issue, however that fix caused the opposite problem to occur, where tier 2 and tier 3 perks became hard to obtain, and so the developers eventually just said fuck it and removed common and iridescent perks entirely. This change was completely enough for that time, however as Dead by Daylight started to evolve throughout the years, more and more perks were added to the game, which was starting to become an issue when navigating all of the perk pages in your inventory. See, up to the 4.3.0 update, perks weren't displayed in an alphabetical order, instead it was more like a weird mixture between them being sorted by rarity and by letters. This and the fact that there was no perk search bar at that time prompted the developers to completely rework perk tier rarities into the current system. Now, the reason that this rework is in my opinion mostly forgotten is mainly because it didn't really change the actual gameplay aspects of Dead by Daylight in any way, and also today when there is an actual search bar in the inventory, players could care even less about what rarity their perks are. This is actually a fairly similar situation to the state of toolboxes. Did you know that unlike today when toolboxes vastly increase repair speeds for swift but short repair bursts, back in the early days of Dead by Daylight, toolboxes did the opposite, in the sense that they had a lot, and I mean a lot more charges, however they only offered a relatively minor repair speed increase. Not only that, but even stranger was the fact that, even though all current toolboxes were present during the beta testing stages of Dead by Daylight, the only available toolbox up to the 1.1.2 update was the current yellow one. Now, the original common, yellow and commodious toolboxes increased generator speeds by the same amount, that being 15%, however the count of their available charges was vastly different. The Mechanics toolbox on the other hand had fairly few charges, though its modifier bonus was 20%, while the purple Engineer's toolbox was pretty much the same, with the exception that it tremendously increased repair speeds, resulting in 25% faster repairs. This one was clearly made with generators in mind, as it straight up did not unlock the sabotage action, unlike Alex's toolbox, which was and still is designed for sabo plays. Fun fact, this toolbox is named after Alex Lynn, a product manager at Behavior who, during the early playtesting stages of Dead by Daylight, was known to always bring a toolbox and sabotage the killer's hooks. Now, because people were starting to realize how fast and busted generator speeds were becoming, this prompted the developers to completely rework the way that toolboxes functioned, and so on the 9th of March 2020, toolboxes received their long-awaited rework and have stayed relatively unchanged since then. Now, in my opinion, a lot of players have forgotten about all of these changes relating to toolboxes, since they were mostly overshadowed by all of the other new additions to the game from this patch, including the addition of breakable walls, the rework to the sabotage mechanic, and of course the new chapter Chains of Hate. Another fairly forgotten rework is the one for the main menu lobby. Do you remember how the Dead by Daylight lobby went from this to this? Well, unlike most of the other visual reworks that have happened throughout the game's history, which have been relatively sudden and abrupt, the lobby actually underwent a fairly gradual evolution, so to say. During the beginning, the lobby only ever received major changes for Halloween, Lunar New Year and winter events. However, as time went on, more lobbies started being introduced for new chapter releases as well as for events. And all of this gradually culminated in this, the lobby from the All Kill chapter. This is arguably the best lobby in Dead by Daylight's entire history, and in my opinion it's such a shame that this chapter didn't come with a new map as well, as I think that the neon aesthetic would have paired incredibly well with DBD's rundown aesthetic. Now, strangely enough, this update was actually listed as the one which implemented the definitive lobby visual rework. However, most players didn't realize this until the release of the next mid-chapter patch, since that was when people saw the new default lobby for the first time. Now, how exactly is the current lobby different from the old one? Well, the original lobby had more of a yellow/orange centered color palette, and it also seemed as if there was a lot more stuff behind the actual characters, whereas today the lobby features a sort of blue and grey theme, and it looks like as if the campfire is located on a very flat hill area, as there doesn't seem to be much behind the characters. Overall, in my opinion, this rework is mostly forgotten since, again, it was a lot more gradual compared to most other visual reworks in the game that have been fairly abrupt, and also there were many other more interesting and more important things happening in Dead by Daylight during the rework for players to really notice its significance. Which lobby style do you guys prefer? Let me know down in the comments. But probably the most forgotten rework in Dead by Daylight's entire history is the one for the in-game tutorial. This rework is so unremembered that the page for it in the DBD fandom wiki is yet to have been updated even after 2.5 years since the tutorial rework. Now, the original Survivor in-game tutorial was very strange in the sense that it started with you repairing the final generator and opening the exit gates, which makes absolutely no sense for this to be the first thing that the game teaches you. Especially when you consider the fact that right after that, the game basically replaced this entire sequence, but with a less repaired generator, just so that you can learn about skill checks. Yeah, I have absolutely no idea why these two things weren't just combined into one whole sequence. Additionally, instead of the tutorial being a continuous sequence of events like the current one, the old tutorial had these really weird blackout screens and was generally structured in a very hard to follow along way for new players. Not to mention that the tutorial also taught you some less than valuable information, so to say, that would actually be straight up detrimental for players that were just starting out. Now, on the other hand, the killer tutorial was actually not that bad. Also, one thing that I think is really cool about the old tutorials is that they featured these very neat mysterious notes and entity whispers that sort of tied all of the lore aspects of Dead by Daylight together, and in my opinion it would be cool if these returned in the current tutorials. Nonetheless, with DBD's 5th anniversary and the introduction of the first ever Resident Evil chapter to the game, the tutorial was also completely reworked for both the survivors and the killer side. The reason why, in my opinion, it is mostly forgotten is because you normally only go through the tutorial once and after that you completely forget about it. Also, similar to the Toolbox Rework, it was mostly overshadowed by the other additions from this update. Well, yeah, I guess that was it. We went through 4 of the most forgotten reworks in Dead by Daylight's history. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, then make sure to let me know by leaving a like, and also I would be glad if you considered subscribing as well. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!